been talking about separation. And I had some other things on my mind that I first wanted to share. And then if talking about separation is, if we have time, we'll talk about that. But there's just some things that I thought were important, things that come up when I travel. And I like to, I think about them and I wanted to share. So that's what we're going to do. The first thing I wanted to share was obviously the most common thing that comes up is devotees have problems. You ever have problems, any of you? Maybe you do sometimes. Some people say the problem is that you think it's a problem. But there are real problems, obviously. And sometimes I've said something which sounds maybe strange, perhaps unsympathetic to those who have problems. I've said that problems are good. And I've said something more strange than that. Problems are necessary, which sounds like I'm blessing you to have problems. May you all be blessed to face hundreds of problems. Now, I wouldn't give that blessing, but I wanted to talk about it. And this is something I've talked about a lot, and I think it keeps coming up, which means that some things we talk about a lot don't register deeply. At least that's the impression I get, because it keeps coming up. So I wanted to talk about problems. And you've probably heard me say things like, we need problems. Have you ever heard me say that? Like, if we don't have problems or difficulties, we probably would have a difficult time being devotees. That's my experience personally, and by seeing others. And that's my understanding of why Krishna created the world with problems. Of course, a lot of the problems we create. So a lot of the problems he didn't create, we created. So that's another issue. But that's also good, because when you do something wrong and it creates a problem and you didn't realize it was wrong until the result was bad, then you realize, oh, that was the wrong thing. I shouldn't do that. But you didn't know that until you saw the result. That ever happened to you? You don't know it's wrong until you get a bad result, and then, oh, this is particularly common when you say the wrong thing. Oh, you ever say that? I must have said the wrong thing. Because now this person will never talk to you again. Oh, I must have said the wrong thing. You didn't know it, obviously, because you said it. And now you know it was the wrong thing because there's a reaction. So that's helpful, isn't it? Or sometimes you say the wrong thing, but nobody tells you, and you keep saying the wrong thing until you destroy somebody and you never see them again, and you wonder why. Well, they never told you it was the wrong thing. You didn't know. You didn't see the reaction. So when we do something, and as a consequence, there's a problem, then the first thing is we realize, I probably did something wrong because it created a bad result. Or if we're more honest, we won't say probably, I did something wrong. Of course, there may be situations where someone's upset and you really didn't do anything wrong. But the only wrong thing you may have done is you didn't realize how sensitive someone is. So you didn't really say the wrong thing, but it was the wrong thing for them. So it was the wrong thing, and you see it by the result, that they're upset. So problems are self-correcting mechanisms. Problems as a result of our actions are self-correcting. So we all know, we've all heard, you don't need devotees to tell you, you learn from problems. But what has stimulated this thought of what I want to speak about today is interesting because a little short came up of Bhakti Jordan. You know Bhakti Jordan? Any of you met him? Bhakti Jordan? I don't know if you're outside of America if you get this feed. He's a Canadian. He hasn't joined the temple yet. He's probably never even been to a temple. But he says things that help young people a lot to mature. Jordan Peterson. He says many things, but he's a professor, so he's often dealing with young people. And he said something that I really liked and very relevant because he has a lot of experience with young people. So what he says, what he observes is also things that we observe in our movement. And he said that generally young men don't like taking responsibility. And he says that usually you often see they don't really take responsibility till they're like in their 40s. And he said it's sad, and this is why, because they don't grow, they don't mature. A man or anyone doesn't mature until they take responsibility. And the responsibility is difficult, but the responsibility makes them stronger, more solid, right? Like, women don't want to marry a man who's irresponsible because they want someone who's stable. So a lot of young men don't want to get married because they don't want to settle down. They want to be more free, more quote unquote irresponsible in a certain sense, at least that sense, not. So when he said they lose the opportunity to become stronger, to grow by not taking the responsibility, then I thought this is a very good point. And this is exactly what I wanted to talk about. Not just young men taking responsibility, but every time there is a chance for us to take responsibility or a chance to deal with a difficulty, and we don't, we're missing the opportunity to grow. And the opportunity to grow comes so often from the difficulties. And the reason I'm addressing this is that I find it so common or more common than it was previously in previous generations, it seems, that devotees become bewildered by difficulties. Sometimes they lose faith in Krishna. Why did Krishna allow this to happen? They give up devotional practices or lessen devotional practices in order to deal with the difficulty. But I think that's a huge mistake, because if we understand the nature of the material world and we understand why difficulties are there, and we then understand, no, we need these difficulties to become stronger, and Krishna places these difficulties in our path to become stronger, and therefore, if we don't face them, we're running away from the opportunity to make progress. That's the point. And I think it's a super important point that we all need to understand, because the natural tendency is to, when things are difficult, it shouldn't be a natural tendency. And I don't want to say it's a natural tendency for everyone, but it is a tendency for a lot to take shelter in something other than Krishna consciousness when there's difficulty. Right? If you ever like an anxiety, someone will eat chocolate, right? Or eat pizza or ice cream or something, to pacify them. Or take shelter in some kind of sense gratification to forget the difficulties. Or just they don't know how to deal with it. I had that experience. I may have told you this story. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. When I was, I must have been 18 at the time. It was during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was a huge war the Americans were not winning, and the Americans, like the most powerful military in the world in this little country. It was actually only half of Vietnam. They had North and South, and there was like a civil war, and the Americans were supporting, I believe, the South Vietnam, and the North Vietnam were communists, and of course, the Americans were against communism, and they got involved in this war. And I don't know the details, but it was a pretty serious war because generally, I mean, there are other wars, and if someone wants to go into the military, it's voluntary. You enlist on your own, and they have this thing called the draft. The draft is inaugurated by the government when they need more troops than are enlisting voluntarily. So that means everyone on between the age of 18 and whatever, it didn't matter because I was 18, is subject to be drafted and sent to Vietnam to fight in that war. And so I was 18 at that time. That means it was possible that I had to be drafted. And at that time, you get a letter and you have to go and to the draft board and register. So you register, I had to take a physical exam or whatever. And then you wait to see if they're going to enlist you. They obviously are not going to enlist every single man between the age of 18 and 24 or whatever it is. So I was on that list, and then I had some other things going on in my life at that time that were difficult, I think, with school. And it was all like all these things were converging on me. And I was 18, and it was heavy. So you know what I did? I went to sleep. I didn't want to think about it, so I just went to sleep. Of course, sleep means ignorance, right? So that's one of the ways we deal with problems. We don't want to think about them, so we go to sleep. You know, where you can drink alcohol. We don't do that, but you can have your substitute for alcohol, which today is your phone. You can just go, spend hours on your phone, which is another addiction, because you can, on your phone, you can get as much of that drug as you want. And it's always there 24/7. And then once you have your phone and internet connection, you get as much as you want for free. So you can do that. You can take shelter of lamentation. You can take shelter of lamentation. You can take shelter of self-pity. We don't need to go down the list, because if you've ever run into this problem, then you know what you take shelter of, right? You have your favorite drug, whatever it is, right? I'm talking, I'm talking about something that's not Krishna conscious, and I'm not assuming that all of us do that. I'm just saying, if you've ever done it or have an inclination to do it, this is very relevant. And if you've understood this and you don't do that, this class will be relevant for you in helping other devotees, or just being aware that this is a phenomenon. So my biggest concern is here is we have to see that every difficulty is a chance to become stronger, or it's going to be, we're going to fail in that chance to become stronger, and we're going to become weaker. Now, every time you face a difficulty, excuse me, every time you face a difficulty and you go through it, the next difficulty becomes easier to deal with, and vice versa. You have that experience? And so many people will say, I am what I am because of the difficulties I went through. That has made me who I am today. That means somehow or other they went through them and came out on the other side better, not worse. But we can come out worse, no doubt about it, right? By avoiding the responsibility that the difficulty is calling us to face. When I was younger, I did it all the time, even as a devotee. It was just like, I can't, yeah, the difficulties would come and I'd run away from them. I couldn't deal with them. And I lost opportunities to make advancement. I lost opportunities to become steady, more steady. And then I have to look at my past and say, you would have been better off today had you taken those difficulties more responsibly and figured out how to deal with them in a way that would not disturb you mentally or emotionally, and in a way that would not have any negative impact on your bhakti. So this is the basic point I wanted to make, that every difficulty is an opportunity to become stronger. Or we could say an opportunity to become weaker. Of course, becoming weaker is not an opportunity, but I can't think of another way of saying it. But it's an opportunity right here. Here's your opportunity. If you work through it, you become stronger. If not, the next time this difficulty happens, you are in a weaker position to deal with it, not a stronger position. And you go through it, you're in a stronger position. Correct? This is so relevant in grihastha life and in relationships in general. Because when people can't go through the difficulties, they just want to give up on them. Now, in some cases, maybe that's necessary for the mental sanity or physical safety. But I'm talking, aside from that, these extreme cases, we come together to be happy, to enjoy, to get love, and so many things. And often we don't get them exactly. They don't come in the packages we thought they'd come in. Sometimes something else comes in that package, that, something we didn't expect. And that's when we can really become a real man or a real woman, for lack of a better word, strong individuals, because now we're going to deal with something we didn't anticipate, we didn't want. And we're going to go through it, and we're going to make it work somehow or other. And we're going to come out the other end, and we're going to say, wow, I did it. And you're going to, it's interesting. This is really interesting, because it's easy to run away, because we run away, it's just easier. But when you run into it and you deal with it and you come out on the other side, you feel really good. I did it. I was able to do this. And you give yourself a pat on the back and you go, yeah, that was amazing. That's how we'll feel. And that, that's good to become addicted to that feeling of, I faced a difficulty, I worked through it, I came out the other end. Yeah, you should get addicted to that and get all your whatever rushes, dopamine or whatever you get from doing that. You can get all your dopamine rushes from that. But not only that, at least for me, what I always felt that this was like one of the, I don't want to say main things Prabhupada was teaching, but in a sense, because he was dealing with young people who tended to be irresponsible, you could say, in a sense, at least, or maybe on a practical level or more material level, this was one of the main things he was teaching. This was one of the main things he had to deal with: people giving up responsibility, taking vows and giving them up, taking marriage vows and giving them up, promising to do services and running away from them, and leaving temple presidents, leaving temples in the middle of the night, sometimes leaving with a brahmacharini. These are the things that Prabhupada was dealing with on a regular basis. So, his teaching to us to be responsible, to face difficulties with courage and determination, was a very important and regular teaching. So that's my point of thinking of this. Yeah, just think of it as an opportunity that Krishna is giving us to become stronger, to build character, to build higher levels of responsibility, to build tolerance. And I think probably what you've already figured out, or it seems obvious, that giving that up, why do we give it up? Because it seems easier, right? It sometimes seems easier to give up responsibility than it is to face it. And I can tell you from my experience, that is absolutely, absolutely the worst thing you can do. Absolutely the worst thing. If you ever, to be Krishna conscious, obviously we have to be strong in the face of challenges, both in the field of spreading Krishna consciousness and personal challenges and the challenges that Maya will throw at us. Right? We have to be strong. And every time we pass a test, we become stronger, and it becomes easier and easier and easier, to the point where there really aren't, we could say, we're not really being tested anymore, because nothing's a test anymore, because nothing is going to be a problem for us. Wouldn't that be good? Nothing's a problem anymore. I have no problems. No, nothing's a problem. So that's a point, and I want to go back to the other point that I made, which is very sad. And I'm trying to figure out why this is happening. That when there's a difficulty, as I said, I often find devotees taking shelter in Maya, not in Krishna, like in giving up, chanting less rounds, more time on the internet, more diversions, more self-loathing, self-pity, and like going away from Krishna consciousness. And obviously, they're not conscious that they're looking for shelter in something other than Krishna. But there's something like a bewilderment there, and something like, well, Krishna, why are you doing this to me if you love me? And maybe a reluctance to, is that true? I mean, I know I don't have, I'm having a hard time understanding this, because whenever I'm in difficulty, I always do the opposite. I go to Krishna more. I mean, he's my man, that's where I go. I don't run away from him. What did Sydney say? The causes, shame and guilt cause this. What, I feel unqualified to go to Krishna? Was that it? Like,
yes, Gurudev. Sometimes that maybe you feel ashamed or something like that, and that kind of causes a problem.
Oh, I don't want to go to Krishna because I failed him, something like that. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. So let's talk a little bit about taking shelter. I mean, taking shelter is our normal condition. It's not just when there are problems. That taking shelter is a principle of devotional service, of being a devotee. Devotee means I've no longer taken shelter of Maya as the source of my hopes for anything in this world, hopes for anything in life, but I've taken shelter of Krishna for my hopes, specifically for a relationship with him, but for my sanity, for my happiness, stability, everything, right? Okay, so we have to then acknowledge that we are weak, that we will fail, and we're not perfect, obviously. And that at the same time, Krishna's shelter is what we need, and there's no reason that Krishna would ever prevent any devotee from taking shelter, no matter what they've done. Yesterday, I was, the thing is, I'm glad you brought this up. This is really interesting. There are many prayers of Vaishnavas, and the prayers kind of go like this, something like this. If I look at myself, I see no good. If I look at myself, I look at my life, I see I was only sinful. If I look at my life, I see Krishna, I was against you. You know, they're looking at their past for their devotees. And so there are many, many prayers that basically say this in various poetic ways. My past is sinful. I am lowly and sinful with no good qualities. And I am utterly wretched, basically. You understand the word wretched, Anuradha? Wretched is like the lowest scum in the universe. Well, maybe that's an exaggeration of wretched, but something like that. Like, you know, if there are 100 people and there are only 99 plates, you'd say, I am so much I am the anus of the universe. Let everyone else have it. You know, I don't, you know, my existence is only bad. I'm just occupying space in the universe, and I'm taking unnecessary oxygen from the air. And I'm eating food of the earth other people could eat, and you know, something like that. Which can be also a symptom of prema, which a lot of these prayers are. But here's the point. Here's the point. It's so interesting. And in the context of this conversation, the point is after they say all that, they don't say, well, therefore I give up. They never say that. That's what we say. I am wretched. I've done only sinful activities. I try to be Krishna conscious. I keep failing. You won't find anything good in me. Therefore, what the heck? Just go back to Maya. You know, might as well. They don't say that. They say the opposite. They say, therefore, Krishna, I need your mercy more than anybody. That's the conclusion. There's so many prayers like that. That's like, it's so standardized. You'll see it. Narottam Das Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is very common. Of course, they feel that way. But the point is, what's their conclusion and what's our conclusion? Their conclusion is, therefore, Krishna, I need your shelter. And our conclusion is, I think I'll chant less rounds. I think I'll get up later. Maybe I'll smoke a joint. No, this is really difficult. That's our conclusion. I'm not accusing anybody of doing that, but I have seen it. Or some variety of that. And when I see that, my brain, it shuts off. Because never in my life have I ever thought that way. And in my growing up in Krishna consciousness, I don't remember ever seeing anybody going that route when things got difficult. It was always like, Krishna, help me. I need you more than ever. I'm the most fallen. Give me your mercy. It was always like that. So this is really, really important because it's becoming more and more common for devotees not to think the way the acharyas have showed us. And it's not only a point of prayer or rasa, one's relation with Krishna, how they feel. It's a point of tattva. It's our philosophy. This is our philosophy. Krishna is the only shelter. There are 6 symptoms of surrender. 2 of the symptoms are Krishna is my protector and Krishna is my maintainer. So if Krishna is my protector, then where do you go when you need help? Obviously, you go to him. So it's a point of philosophy also, not just an emotional response. Is that clear? Clarissima. Clarissima. Clarissima means it's very clear. It should be very clear. Clarissima, the highest clarity you can get, right? Is that what it means? I think even in English, there are words like that, aren't there? The highest of some. Anyway, it sounds like it. The ultimate clarity. So we should all be clear on this. And then the next point comes up. I'm a devotee. I'm facing some difficulty. We were saying, the other day in class, Prabhupada said when he was in Juhu, we've come for eternal bliss and now we have eternal headache. Remember that? That was so, it was like, you can read, Yuri Ashwami has a book, you can read about it. Come for eternal bliss, and we have, and just one, like, if Prabhupada says it's a headache, you can understand. It's a huge problem. It's not some little thing. Okay. Could you imagine after so many troubles in ISKCON, so many leaders leaving, so many leaders breaking principles, so many initiates going away? Could you imagine Prabhupada said, that's it, I'm finished. I quit. Hare Krishna. If Prabhupada did that, you know what would have happened? We'd all quit. I want to tell you a story. Well, this is interesting. It's interesting because it's reality, and I hope none of you have to face this reality ever. And I, of course, have vowed to you who are my disciples that you would never have to face this reality. But that reality was faced by many devotees in ISKCON when their gurus left. They said, I give up, I quit, I can't do it. And that's exactly what happened to many disciples. They also gave up and quit. My guru can't do it, I give up also. If he can't do it, how can I do it? So what we're talking about, even so-called advanced devotees ran into that. Rather than taking shelter in Krishna, they took shelter in something else. So I guess I have to correct myself and say, maybe this is more common than I realize, because that's what happened. Of course, they might say they took shelter in Krishna in a different way. Perhaps that's true. We have often said that Prabhupada had many reasons to give up, right? He could like, I mean, we could make a list if we wanted to have just a little fun here. Let's make a list of all the reasons why Prabhupada should have just went back to Vrindavan, to Radha Damodar Temple, and signed off on ISKCON and the whole project. Well, just look at yourself in the mirror. We could have 5,000 reasons, like every disciple would be one reason, because we're, as Prabhupada said, like monkeys. We were not quality material. We were not born in Brahmin families. We were not, super capable of the highest mature levels of maturity. And so, I mean, we were good people. I don't want to minimize it, but from a Brahminical or Vaishnava point of view of cultured, educated people, no, that wasn't us. So there are 5,000 reasons right there. In a sense, of course, those were 5,000 reasons why Prabhupada stayed, but they could be 5,000 reasons why he could have signed off. Said, actually, none of you will ever make it, and we're not doing much. We have more problems than good, and with all of you in this movement, it could self-destruct. It could be like a force for evil. It could be, right? Prabhupada did have that concern that ISKCON could have, turned out to be a monster. I mean, anyway, we don't have to go through all the reasons, and I don't want to offend anybody. Sounded kind of offensive, right? I'm going to put that in there. Mahatma Prabhu said Prabhupada had 5,000 reasons to give up on preaching. 5,000 disciples, yeah. That ought to get me a few hate mails, right? So, Anuradha, where are you broadcasting? On Facebook?
Yes, on Spanish Facebook.
Yeah. Can you say that in Spanish? I don't know if Melissa's connected.
We send the link for the Spanish Latin American.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she has it.
Okay. All right. Anyway, I'll have to retract that statement before I get hate mail and my life threatened. But anyway, I think every Prabhupada disciple in his humility and honesty would say, yeah, I was kind of a headache for Prabhupada in many ways. So, and all, there's numerous difficulties Prabhupada went through, which could all have been excuses. So look at the example we have, and Prabhupada never gave up. I mean, I wrote letters to Prabhupada that I regret having written because I shouldn't have bothered him with such things. And he compassionately answered me and tolerated me and encouraged me. So pure devotee is their only shelter is Krishna. I'll give you an example. It's very interesting. There's a bird, it's called a thunderbird. You have thunderbird in your country? I don't know what you call it. Thunderbird. In India, it's called Chicora. Abhinav, you know Chicora? Chicora bird? Kavita knows. Yeah, Chicora. We call it thunderbird. I don't know in Spanish. You have a name, Anuradha, in Spanish?
I don't know.
Why don't you look it up?
I don't know the names because are very specific.
Why don't you look? Well, Gaurapriya, why don't you look it up and tell us in Spanish what a thunderbird is? Anyway, in Sanskrit, it's called Chikora, and I believe it's described in the Nectar of Devotion. And the Chikora bird, we call it a thunderbird because it only gets water from the rain. And if there's water, I keep pausing thinking like, you're going to translate because I've been a month of I'm like waiting for her to translate. I'm used to pausing, and my brain is working more slowly because I have all that time to pause. They could get water anywhere, but they'll only get water from a cloud. They're always looking up for water. That's called the Chicora bird. Isn't that interesting? When you get the name in Spanish, just send a message to Anuradha so she can tell all the Spanish-speaking devotees the name. But even if you know the name, you may not know that it gets all its water from the cloud. So it's always got its head up. Or like you could give it a glass of water and it won't take it. So this is used as an analogy that a devotee only looks for mercy from Krishna. Nowhere else. It only depends on Krishna. It could I could take shelter in some other place, but I don't. I only take shelter. I only take shelter in Krishna. Isn't that nice? Chicora bird. So you remember the Chicora bird, all of you. So when you're having difficulty, you can say, I should be like a Chicora bird. I only take shelter in Krishna. That's where I get my mercy. Hare Krishna. Isn't that nice? Mercy, shelter, so many things no, we don't go there. We go to the cloud of mercy from Krishna. The Chicora bird of Krishna's mercy. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat and maybe because I basically said what I wanted to say on this topic, at least so far. Some of your comments may stimulate other discussion. Gopinath says, understand the difficulties help you grow, but we're not always in that platform to see them as opportunities. General, when there's difficulties, I'm with the guard down. Yeah. Well, let us have the mantra, Gopinath, difficulties are necessary. So rather than allow ourselves to be derailed, discouraged, negatively affected by the difficulty, we can think, oh, here's a difficulty. I need this. This is good. It's a challenge. I have to step up to the plate now, as we say in America. That's a baseball analogy. When you're batting, there's a plate, what they call a plate on the ground. You step up to the plate. All right. So now I have to step up to the occasion. And it's an opportunity for me now to become stronger. And if I fail, then I should think I'm actually becoming weaker. That's what's happening. And it's true. If you fail, then you're becoming weaker. Aren't you? You're giving into weakness. There is a story that'll help you. There was a devotee who was having a lot of difficulty, but he was a very nice devotee, very sincere, trying, but having difficulty. And the devotees were telling Prabhupada about this devotee, and they all liked him. So I guess they were telling Prabhupada to see how Prabhupada could help him, or what Prabhupada would say about the fact that devotee's trying, but he's not able to maintain the standards that he would like to maintain. So they said, Prabhupada, he's sincere, but he's weak. And Prabhupada said, why are you giving into your weakness? That's a very simple question. But if you unpack the question, that's very profound. It's a simple answer, excuse me. And if you unpack it, that's very, very deep, but very, very simple. I am weak, and that weakness is getting in the way of my spiritual advancement. So the natural question is, then why would you give into weakness? Let's use a material example. You want to become something. And if you really want it, and you're running into difficulty, and you give up because you say, well, I'm weak, I think it would be natural to say, well, don't you want it? And if you want it, then why are you giving up? So that's what Prabhupada meant. Why are you giving into weakness? Don't you want to be Krishna conscious? If you do, if that's what you want, then why would you give into weakness? Of course, you might say, well, maybe I don't really want it, which is why I give into weakness. And that may be true. It's something to reflect. If I'm giving into weakness, maybe I don't want it. That's why I'm giving into weakness. And yeah, maybe you're right. You don't want it. But then natural question would be, well, what do I have to do to want it more? Because when you want something, then you don't give in to the obstacles, do you? It's when you want it less, you give in to the obstacles. I think that's an answer to my question there, that at least a possible answer is why devotees tend to take shelter in something other than Krishna when there's difficulties. And probably it's because they don't want Krishna enough. And that would answer Prabhupada's question, why are you giving into weakness? I guess because I don't want Krishna enough. Does that make sense to you? I mean, I think, if you replace Krishna with something else, then why would we give in to anything? Say, well, in your own life, there's some difficulty and you give up. And you might say, I didn't really want it that much, and the difficulty is so great, it's not really worth going through it. right? You must have all had that experience. You know, you're looking at something, maybe it's very expensive, and to get it, you'd have to work a second job or whatever, or extra hours. And you say, it's not, I don't want it that much that it's worth, you know, having to upset my life to get it. All right, you don't want it that much. Or, you know, you're in a relation with somebody and there's some difficulty. And you're like, well, actually, I don't like him that much to have to tolerate all of this. I just, you know, it's too difficult. I'd rather just let the relationship go. It's not that important. Okay. So that's something to reflect on. And if you relate to that, if that makes sense to you, then I would say, okay, well, how can you strengthen that desire? When I was in Chile, I think I have, wait a minute. I think I have on my computer Chile's weather. Yeah, it's cold there now, isn't it? My computer says it's 39 Fahrenheit, which is like 4 degrees or something. Well, it's cold there. They're so far south, they're almost in Antarctica. They're almost Eskimos. They're just a few thousand miles away from being Eskimos. Yeah. So if there's something that I want, but I don't want it, if there's something I should want, but I don't want it, then shouldn't I figure out how I should want it more? What I need to do to actually want it more, so that when the difficulties come, I won't back off, but I'll go forward. It's interesting that there's a psychology that it comes out in this saying when the, how does it go? Something like, when the things are tough, the tough get going. What's that saying? So, does anybody know? Something like that, right?
When going gets tough, tough gets going.
Yeah, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Yeah. Why do they get going when the going's tough? Because whatever they're going for is what isn't most important for them, so they're not going to give up on it. So that's the mood of the pure devotee, and that if we don't have that mood, we have to think how to cultivate that mood, so that no matter what happens, no matter what obstacles are there, it will just make me stronger. And that's what Krishna is trying to do with obstacles. He's trying to make us stronger. So there's a way to practice this. And one way to practice this is that when you face a difficulty and you fail, you ask yourself, what should I have done? What I did wrong. And therefore, next time when it happens again, I'm prepared to deal with it. So we ask that question. What did I do wrong? Sometimes you don't know how to do it better. Then you're going to have to ask somebody, I failed in this. How can I make it better? Right? So that way, as we all know, it's common that we learn from mistakes. If I can't learn from a mistake, then I'm in a bad situation because I'm going to make many mistakes. And if I make many mistakes and I learn from my mistakes, I'll become quite a wise person. And if I don't learn from those mistakes, because I'm going to make many, then I'll remain ignorant or foolish. Correct? So you can all become very wise. If you learn, every time you make a mistake, you learn from that. There was a song like that, I'm one day older, but not one day wiser, something like that. Right? You can be one day older, but not one day wiser. You could be one day more stupid also. No, there was a song that, although I'm older now, I was wiser when I was younger, right? I don't know. Yeah, that could also be. That does happen. But we can do some math here. If I learn from every mistake, and I make mistakes all the time, I can grow quite quickly and become very wise. And if I don't, I remain where I am, the same person, not growing, making the same mistakes over and over and not learning from them. But of course, what's most important in this discussion is learning how to take shelter of Krishna when there's difficulty. Right? Correct? Okay, you're all right. You're all correct. You all agree with me, therefore you're all correct. And if you don't agree with me, then write in the chat what you don't agree with and we'll discuss it. Why do you think this tendency of facing difficulties have increased, having more emotional responses and not searching for Krishna shelter? You know, it could not only be a spiritual weakness, it could be a material problem. Just because if we come to Krishna consciousness with an irresponsible attitude, then naturally we'll apply that. You know, whatever attitude we have, we'll apply it to Krishna consciousness. Go, oh, this is too difficult, I give up. Well, that's what I always did before I was a devotee, and vice versa. If I didn't do that, I'll tend to be more determined. So that's one answer. It might just be a tendency to be somewhat irresponsible. You know, there is this interesting phenomenon in the name of spirituality and freedom and liberation. We could be irresponsible. So the two are kind of closely related. So-called detachment and spirituality and irresponsibility. I'm very detached. No, maybe you're very irresponsible. You're not very detached. You know, if I'm very detached, Prabhupada was very detached, but not irresponsible. So we can use irresponsible as a synonym for detachment. Or, excuse me, use detachment as a synonym for irresponsible. So that could be a possible reason. Sydney gave some other reasons. Now that we're discussing this, my guess would be that a lot of it is rooted in an emotional response more than a misunderstanding of our philosophy, or even in a spiritual weakness, although it manifests as a spiritual weakness. I'm not taking shelter in Krishna, but it could have its roots in some emotional cause in some way. Yeah. But the point is, the more you're in difficulty, the more we're in difficulty, the more we need Krishna, not the less we need Krishna. Right? I think that's like the does statement of the universe, isn't it? Of course, the more we're in difficulty, the more we need Krishna, not the more we need Maya. You're going to take shelter in the holy name or ice cream when you have difficulty? Some of you say, what about both, Prabhu? Okay. At least if you offer the ice cream and you realize the ice cream is not the complete shelter. The holy name is the complete shelter. Yeah, so that's the point. Your shelter is Krishna, nothing else. And so when there's difficulties, Krishna has put those difficulties to push you closer to him. And what a travesty, you understand the word travesty, Anuradha? Yeah. Travesty is like horrible loss. Krishna's pushing you so you'll come closer to him, and you turn around and run away to Maya. Isn't it? Like, that's like really unfortunate if we do that. And Krishna was the one who arranged the difficulty so that we would come closer to him, and then we run away from him to ice cream and pizza for our shelter. Or whatever your favorite indulgence is. Instagram or TikTok or whatever your drug of choice is. Hare Krishna. Okay. Sydney says, increased fear, wrong thinking, social media, lack of understanding, ignorance, lack of discipline, bad habits, to name a few. And now we have a whole list here of reasons. Yeah. So, Krishna has to be your go-to, our only shelter. So Ekaterina says, I think it's due to purification on the spiritual path and also Krishna's mercy to help us detach from the material world. Maybe it's also help us practice taking shelter. Yeah, it's all. Difficulties can be purifying, can be detaching, and can help us take shelter of Krishna, or the opposite. So when there's a difficulty and we don't take shelter of Krishna, then it's not purifying. It's not detaching. That's unfortunate. There's another unfortunate thing, and I've spoken about this, but I think it's worth talking about it again. That sometimes the difficulties that we face are difficulties with people. Or it's common, right? One of the most common difficulties is with people. And so every time there's a difficulty, there's going to be a reaction to that difficulty, right? And that reaction can often help us tremendously, or it can often harm us tremendously, depending on what that reaction is. Like, for example, we'll use kind of what we've been talking about to talk about a bad relationship with a devotee. So, due to a situation, I have a bad relationship, or I'm upset with a devotee. Okay. Well, let's just say objectively the devotee did something upsetting. So it's not even your opinion. It was upsetting and you're upset. And taking what we've just discussed, and I say, okay, I have to deal with this now. And I want to deal with it by taking shelter of Krishna. And if I take shelter of Krishna in this situation, then I have to ask myself, well, how does Krishna want me to deal with this? Because if I'm using his as my guide, how does he want me to deal with it? And then we'll think of things like, well, he wants me to be humble. He wants me to be respectful. He wants me to be understanding. And he doesn't want me to make offense, that's for sure. And he wants, if possible, that I appreciate the good in this person, etc. Right? So then that difficulty will be an impetus to help us be a better devotee. And it will protect us from our natural human tendency to be offensive or critical or in some way negative towards that devotee, which is quite common in relationships. Right? I don't even want to see his face ever again. He calls himself a devotee. Are you kidding me? You know, I'm just like, you ever done that before? You make like 10 offenses every second, like inconceivably. You know, like, well, I don't know what the Olympic record is for offenses, how many you can make in a second. But you know, what, you've ever been there where you just make multiple offenses, like shooting out like a machine gun. So, yes, any of you have that experience? Or you're all sadhus, so you've never done that before, right? Okay, we have no hands going up, so now I'm speaking only to sadhus here who've never made any offenses to anyone, ever. Good. You don't need to hear this, but in case there's someone who was going to watch this video later, maybe they need to hear it. So I could take out my machine gun and fire offenses, You know, you can't fire 10 offenses every second, but you can fire one offense every few seconds. Or I could do what I said before, reflect on it. Okay, why am I getting upset? And okay, they did something wrong, but does that justify me getting upset? Does it justify the criticism I'm levying against them and so forth? And then you realize, no. And then you'll ask yourself, how would a pure devotee respond to this? And okay, we'll take it as Krishna's mercy that they were upset with me, or what did I do to upset them, like that. So that difficulty becomes then a launching board for introspection and self-improvement, or a launching board for offense. Now, what's quite common is the offense side of it, isn't it? Have you noticed that? Have you noticed it's easier to make offense than it is to appreciate it? Have you noticed it's easier to say something bad about someone than it is to say something good? Yeah. So what we're talking about here is this tendency to go down as opposed to at least the practice of saying and doing things that will take us up. Now, there's another thing to recognize, that if we become too negative and too critical, it can be very damaging. And sometimes devotees have become so negative and critical, they've isolated themselves from all devotees. They don't want any association. And there's nowhere in our scripture where it says, don't associate with devotees. It says, don't associate with non-devotees, but it says you must associate with devotees. So when we become extremely critical, we don't want to associate, or we may not want to associate, especially if we become critical like everybody or many buddies, or, this is what happens. So Lord Chaitanya says, no, I don't think you should be in the association of devotees. So I will give you shelter of my lotus feet by kicking you away. I will take my lotus foot and kick you away from Sangha. That's how you'll get my foot, but that doesn't help you. And so we need to see that. By our own mentality, we could divorce ourselves from other Sangha. That's not good, right? So these are things to be aware of, reflect on. Abhinav says, I'll read the next one. What should be the prayers to Krishna, whether to remove difficulties as they are causing a trouble in service or for strength to overcome them? There's a nice prayer. My Lord, I don't pray you remove the difficulties. I pray you give me the strength to face the difficulties that are coming. Yeah, that's beautiful. So removing the difficulties, remove the difficulties so I can happily eat my ice cream. All right. I don't think that's the best prayer. Because if Krishna is giving difficulties to help us, why would we ask him to remove them? Krishna, give me whatever it is you want me to get from these difficulties, the strength, the knowledge, and so forth. Wouldn't that be better prayer? Or even if you didn't pray, wouldn't it be better just like, what can I learn from this? How can I become better because of this? Wouldn't that be better? I do not pray, my Lord, I do not pray for you to relieve difficulties. I pray for you, give me the strength to face the difficulties. Yes, that's what it means. Yeah. I have a question from Venkateshwara Govinda Das. He says, usually I remember the Supreme Lord more when I'm in trouble. Yes. Finally enlightened with how do I remember the Supreme Lord always, especially during happiness and all the time? Well, Krishna says, tolerate happiness. And he says, don't become overwhelmed and think everything is fine now. Well, it might be fine now, it may not be fine tomorrow. Well, that's why Krishna says don't get overwhelmed by happiness. So, so that's one answer. Remain, if things are great. Okay, thank you, Krishna. I appreciate it. And don't become bewildered by it, thinking, oh, now I can enjoy, or that tomorrow may don't think that tomorrow it's going to be the same, or next week it may not be. There's always something. So, yeah. Appreciation is very important. Thank you, Krishna. Or if you're really bold, Venkateshwara, I'm not saying you want to do this, but I will suggest it. You may say, Krishna, my life's too good. Throw some bumps in the road for me. I don't know if Krishna, I need a few bumps in the road. I don't know if any of you want to pray that way. Probably you have enough bumps already. You don't need any more. But this is the prayer of beautiful prayer of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, whatever I have that's getting in the way, take it away, and whatever I need for my advancement, give it to me. So that's general. You don't have to say, Krishna, send me miseries. But you can say, whatever I have, or whatever I'm attached to, that's an obstacle, please remove it. And whatever I need to grow, please give it. And then you can let Krishna decide if you're brave enough to pray that way, and who knows what he's going to give you. Right? So you can try that, Venkateshwar, if you're bold enough. And if you think your life is like so good and you're so bewildered by the goodness, things are going so well, you can also pray, Krishna, help me see the temporary nature of this. Help me see that compared to the spiritual world, even the best of this world is really nothing to celebrate. Give me that realization, give me that knowledge that it's, Prabhupada tells the story, wet stool, dry stool. You know that story? It's kind of funny. Raise your hand if you've heard the example of the wet stool and the dry stool. The wet stool is finding fault with the dry stool. Oh, look at that stool, it's dry. I'm better, I'm wet. So it's like materially better, materially worse. And then it's kind of the same thing. It's like a good prison cell and a bad one. Well, you're still in prison. It's kind of the same problem. And then Prabhupada would say, and the wet stool doesn't know. In a few days, it's going to be dry stool also. So I'm doing well now, but it's not going to be permanent. Sorry for the bad news. I wish I could give better news, like you weren't going to die and get old and all that, and you wouldn't have problems, but I can't give that to you. It's not the way Krishna arranged it. I mean, problems are really, I wish maybe the real essence of this class is that we could come to the point of realizing that problems are really good. They're really good because they're really necessary for us, because we're not that spiritually advanced that not having problems would be like, if we didn't have problems, we'd be fine. It's, I mean, admittedly, if we didn't have problems, few of any of us would be devotees. Or if we didn't have problems, few or any of us would stay devotees. I was told that in some parts of the world where things are really bad, government is bad, weather is bad, economy is bad, it's just bad, 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 that a lot of devotees leave Krishna consciousness because their life becomes better and they become satisfied, and then they give it up. And it's interesting because Prabhupada even talks about that I believe it's in Bhagavad Gita, that many people, when their life is better, they come from a difficult situation, they become Krishna conscious, they have a good life, and then they give it up because now their life's better. I have a sattvic lifestyle, I'm happy, I don't need Krishna anymore. They give it up. Any of you remember reading a purport like that in Bhagavad Gita? It's in there. As far as I remember, it's in there. Now, of course, we don't have to pray for problems because they just come, right? This is natural. You eat the wrong food, you get sick. Say the wrong thing, your best friend hates you. You don't have to look for problems. They're like, we're in the world of problems. But the point is, can you use those problems to help you? I was just counseling a girl who had 2 miscarriages. It's very, very difficult because the second miscarriage, the child was 6 months old. And she wanted to know why. And, it's a big kind of gray area why. But what if that child would have been a problem for her? Maybe that child would have caused her distress and Krishna protected her. I mean, we don't know, right? Maybe that child would have had some difficulty in life that would have made this devotee's life very difficult, and Krishna was protecting her. But we don't know. Sometimes when I miss a flight or the flight's canceled or they don't have enough seats, I think, oh. And I'm like, no, but I have to get there. I'm going to miss this or that. And I think, oh, I wonder if that plane's going to crash. And Krishna that's my first thought. A plane's probably going to crash and Krishna protected me. Rather than, Krishna, why did you do this? It's like, I always default to seeing, oh, there must be some good reason this happened. That's my default. Rather than, Krishna, why are you doing this? I don't deserve it. I didn't do anything. That's not fair. No, I think, oh, there must be some reason. Maybe something good is going to come from this. So we can think that way also. Yeah. So Venkateshwar, you're too happy, right? As long as you're happy in Krishna consciousness and appreciate it, it's great. And then you just, if there's a problem, and expect there will be, just take it as Krishna has arranged this for me to help me, and tolerate the happiness. Don't be overwhelmed by it. Don't think it's permanent. Don't think this is, the goal of life like that. I don't think anybody could be bewildered by happiness who's tasting the nectar of Krishna consciousness deeply. I don't think it's possible. Like I travel all around the world and I, see beautiful places and eat nice things and like so many things. But, it's like Krishna consciousness is like, it's just on a different level. So it doesn't compare. There's nothing in this world that compares. So that's another answer. By advancing more in Krishna consciousness, then the greatest things of this world will not bewilder you. After all, it's all material. What's the nature of material? It can't satisfy you spiritually, and it's temporary. So for a devotee, there's nothing material that's going to bewilder them because it's just varieties of the same thing. It's not eternal. It's not full of bliss. It's not full of knowledge. This, you know that story I tell when the devotee was hearing some sitar music. I think it was on an airplane, and he said, "Oh, Prabhupada, that music is so nice." And there was no bhajan, no kirtan, no glorification of Krishna, just some nice music. And Prabhupada said, no, that's Maya, because Maya means something which is not in relation to Krishna. So Prabhupada said, Maya, we take Maya. How could you say that's nice music? How could that be Maya? Well, Krishna's not being glorified, so Krishna's not present. Now, we may hear Krishna ourselves. We may know. That music may remind me of Krishna. That's another thing. So Prabhupada said it's Maya. But he said, yeah, but it's nice. It's sitar music. Prabhupada said, yeah, it's nice Maya. So Prabhupada was making the point, there's nice Maya and there's not nice Maya, but it's all, it's like a nice prison cell and a not nice prison cell, but it's all in the prison. So if you see it that way, then nothing in this world is going to really bewilder you. It's great. Great. I got, it's like, wow, My wife said, I have some good news. My wife made a film, and the film was put on a website called Gaia, where like with all these films, spiritual films and films too, alternative films are. And they hadn't paid her in like 12 years. The company was taken over by and they went through the records. Like, so this person hasn't been paid. So you got in the car, I said, we had this huge tax bill we weren't prepared for. And she said, yeah, it was good, our preaching is expanding, so more people are buying books, taking courses, giving donations, so that's good. But we weren't prepared for the amount of tax we had to spend. And they paid her about exactly the amount of money we needed for the taxes. She says, that's the good news. They're sending a check for this amount. I go, that's exactly how much our taxes are. I go, okay. Why did I say that? What was I talking about? Yeah. So I was like, so it was like, okay, that's good. What else? Tell me something bad now. What bad happens? Then she told me something bad. It's like that. It's like, okay, it's not like fantastic, I lost my mind. I'm so happy I can pay my taxes. Yeah, I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. It's like, whatever, they're like, oh, I can buy this now. I always wanted to buy this. There's nothing that, my point was, when you're relishing Krishna consciousness, then, the greatest things of this world are like, yeah, it's nice, whatever. When Prabhupada was in Hawaii, they wanted to take him on a tour. Prabhupada will take you all over Hawaii. They're beautiful trees, this and that. He's like, I didn't come to Hawaii to see trees. Like, you're going to take a pure devotee and think you're going to stimulate him by showing him some beautiful trees. And they got some really nice ones in Hawaii. I was quite stimulated. For a few seconds, actually. They have these eucalyptus trees, but they're all these colors in them. They're like red and yellow. You ever seen those? I never saw them before, so it's like, wow. And, okay, it's over in 3 seconds. Now what do? You need something else to wow you, right? But you're always looking for the next wow. Maybe I should write a book, The Next Wow. Can you write that, Chaitanya? Can you write that down? Because we want to do a talk on happiness. That's a good one. We're always looking for the next wow. And that wow lasted for 3 seconds. Not a very good wow. That one lasted for 3 weeks. That was a good one. And after 3 weeks, we're looking for the next wow. In search of the next wow. Yeah, my new book. One of you can write it for me. Put my name on it. In search of the new wow. Well, we'll just have ChatGPT write it for me. Put my name on it, get a Nobel Prize. I go, I didn't even write the book. Yeah, the people are going to win a Nobel Prize for something that ChatGPT did, and then they'll take the Nobel Prize away when they find out they didn't do it, but the AI did it. Yeah, that's where the world's coming to now. Okay. Hare Krishna. All right, with the next question or statement. Hari Bhakti says, when the mind gets disturbed, we forget the philosophy. Krishna is my only shelter. Yeah. I just have such a hard time thinking, how could anything, it's like saying, when my life's difficult, Krishna is no longer God. I'm like, what? Yeah, when my life's difficult, Krishna is not God. I'm like, what? I don't understand. How did he not become? No, when my life's difficult, there's no God. I'm an atheist. No, you're supposed to be a theist when it's difficult. No, when it's difficult, I just forget Krishna. He doesn't exist. I go, it doesn't make sense to me. How could a difficulty make Krishna disappear from your life. He should be coming closer. Right? So you just have to train yourself. I think that doesn't make sense. No, when difficulty is, I'm glad he's God because I need him more than ever when there's difficulty. Not like I don't need a God when there's difficulty. Like that's weird, isn't it? Not to make you not to make fun of you. I'm just saying in general, that idea God doesn't exist when there's difficulty. No, he should exist more when there's you need him more when there's difficulty. Right? Don't you? You need to chant better rounds when there's difficulty, right? Yeah, of course. Yes. Clarissimo. Is that very clear? Clarissimo. Right, Bhakti, is that clarissimo? Very clear. Yeah. You know, it's like you're about to get in an accident. This devotee said he had, I think it was a dream he had. He said he was getting in an accident and he didn't chant Krishna. He chanted Mama, Mama. He's chanting his mother for his mother. Like, what? And he goes, that was weird. I didn't chant Hare Krishna. I chanted Mommy, Mommy, or Mama, Mama, or Amma, Amma. Like, oh, like, what happened to the Maha Mantra? Like why? Like, where are we taking shelter? Where are we learning to take shelter? Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Dana Pran. Krishna is my mother, my father, my life and soul. My wealth, Dana, my life, breath, prana. What's going on to the Hare Krishna movement? Krishna is disappearing from the Hare Krishna movement. No. Krishna created difficulties so you would feel closer to him, not further. Okay, Anuradha has a question from devotee named Vegavan. Vegavan. Vegavan means one who's full of Vega. Must be the original vegan devotee, right? He's full of being a vegan. Vegavan, are you a vegan or not? If you're not, we have to change your name. Vegavan, it's Vega. Mono. Full of control. This Vegavan must be one who's controlled, right? As Vegas are pushings. Or control. Bacho Vega, Manasukura. Or maybe it means something else. That if I translate it that way, it would mean someone is not controlled. So mega must in this sense mean something different. Okay. How can I talk to my mind thinking this Krishna conscious process is only for high souls and I am not one of them? Well, it's not for high. Mahaprabhu didn't come for the high souls. He came for the low souls. That's why he's called Patita Pavana. Patita means fallen and Pavana means friend. So all the songs to Mahaprabhu, I'm the most fallen, therefore you're the most merciful to the most fallen. So if you feel yourself low, that means you are the most capable, qualified, and best position to get Mahaprabhu's mercy because he gives it to the low. So the lower you are, the better. It's like, I had fractured my hip like whenever, 20 years ago, and I didn't have much money, and I went to the hospital, like we had an operation, and the whole thing was like, I don't know, $50,000, these medical in America is like, it's not good. If you get me going, I'll start cursing, so I won't say more. But my income was so low that the government had a program. If you don't earn beyond a certain point, they cover all your medical. So I was like, hey, it pays to be poor sometimes. So they paid for everything. So it pays to be poor in Mahaprabhu's movement. He's the most merciful to those who are most fallen. So I have one comment from Sonali Nanda. 5 months back, a devotee came into my life. He was all good, humble. He made all promises to marry me. Now suddenly he stopped talking to me. In fact, he ignored me at the temple. I felt shattered. Now I feel so confused. Whom to trust and whom not to trust. Please pray for me. I'm chanting more rounds as instructed by my 6-year guru. Well, Sonali, one thing you can think of is that Krishna knew that he wouldn't be a good husband for you, and he made him act that way to protect you from having to get married, have a child, and then find out that he does things like this, turns his back on you all of a sudden, and maybe he has another girl. So better it happens before you're married than after, right? So you could also flip it around and appreciate that Krishna protected you. So we have the serenity prayer from John. Grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This prayer help me with the bumps. And John, I was told it's not change the things I can, but change the things I should. You can check that out, because I could change a lot of things, but should I? Okay, think about that one. I'm taking a course called Problem Resolution, and the main point is that problems are indications of something we need to face and change. So opportunities to improve. Exactly. Exactamente. Perfecto. Clarissimo. It makes you think I can speak Spanish. What I realize is I have no idea how the grammar works in Spanish, but I just have words. And I don't know if el or la comes before them, or es, or esta, or estan, or este, or eso. So I put all the wrong verbs with the words, and the wrong feminines with it. I haven't learned that. So if I get a sentence right, it's only by chance. And if chance theory were true, I'd be speaking perfect Spanish, because I'd just throw everything I know together and speak perfectly. But things don't happen by chance. They happen by design. Hare Krishna. Okay. Yeah. So Anuradha says problems are something, indications of something she learned, or whoever wrote that we need to face. Who wants to face problems? We like to run away from problems. It's easier, right? Just don't think about it. I don't have any money. Don't think about it. And if you don't think about it, you don't do anything. And tomorrow you still don't have any money. And on Wednesday, you still won't have any money, because you don't want to think about it. Now, if you think about it, tomorrow you may have a little money, and Wednesday you may have a little more, because you thought about it. But I don't want to think about it because it's too depressing. So I'm just going to pretend it's not a problem. And I'll have no money on Thursday and Friday and Saturday or Sunday. But the bills don't go away when the money goes away, right? So it's such a simple principle, but it's so common. We don't face problems that we could solve. Like sometimes, do you ever procrastinate on something? Oh, I can't do this. It's going to take too long. It's too hard. Then you finally do it after like 20 years and go, that took like 4 seconds. Why did I procrastinate? Isn't it? It wasn't that hard. It only took 4 seconds. Isn't that weird? It's like, wow. That's the name of the name of another book. You can write it down, Chaitanya. We're all weird. Or isn't that weird? All the weird things like that don't make any sense that we do. Isn't that weird? And if I don't write the books, you can write them. If I never get around to it, at least you have book titles. Hare Krishna. Isn't that weird? Yeah. We're waiting for Gauramani to come on. I don't know. There's a problem. But, we used to give classes for 2 hours. I can easily go. 2 hours is kind of like my standard. If you don't stop me, I can go for 2, but she usually comes on at an hour and a half. We were starting earlier before, but we're like long. But does anyone else want to say anything? I pray you all have many problems and you all will grow rapidly by facing all your problems. Honorata says she doesn't see her. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we'll wait a few more minutes and see what happens. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, this Sonali, what's Sonali said that, you know, this boy, you know, just like stop talking to her, you know. This happens so often. And my first thought is, wow, you're lucky he didn't do that after you're married. Krishna's mercy on you. Of course, I know you wouldn't see it that way because you're attached to him. But that's how me as a detached person, my first thought is, oh, Krishna must have protected you from this person who's probably going to do that to you and leave you with a 6-month-old baby and leave you for another woman. It happens, right? So better it happens before you're married without the kid, right? Yes, because you don't want it to happen. And you got to see what the poor boy is made out of. It looks like he was made out of jelly or something, you know, without, you know, not sturdy. Hare Krishna. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Prabhupada. Now we're going to chant japa together, if you like. Kauramani is here.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna.